I'm Tommy Dunn, BEM, and I was first diagnosed with dementia in 2011. I didn't know what fear was until I heard those words. You've got young onset dementia, Alzheimer's. You think your life's over then, and this is what we know, what our peers are going through at the moment.
Yeah, my name's Paul Hitchmore and I live in Liverpool and I'm 70 years of age. And I was diagnosed in 2013. The same sketch as Tommy, the fear, trepidation and the anxiety, all that stuff kicks in. I've always been involved with music from years ago, since I was 20 years of age, playing in bands on the drums, and then taught myself guitar and piano. And so I was always interested. I'm from a musical family anyway. But along the dementia journey, which obviously I'm involved in, then I can always remember where I was if I heard a certain piece of music, and particularly music from the 60s. I mean, we know every word, to every song that ever was in the 60s. You don't lose intelligence, and you can, I think, compensate for the maybe the neurons that you lose, then you can add to them. And I think that music does that. And it does fill your heart with joy when you hear it. When I retired from work medically, then I always wanted to go into a studio and do things properly, like just as an ambition and as a hobby as well, to give me a focus of getting out of bed in the morning and doing something. So I was writing like crazy, and then Tommy is quite good at poetry, so he did the lyrics to quite a few of the songs, and then we kind of, I like the Simon and Garfunkel of dementia, if you like, or the Peters and Lee, whichever we wish to choose.
Music reaches the part of your brain that normal communication can't. And I've seen people living with dementia that don't speak, but as soon as you put a certain song on, they sing the whole song right through. They come alive, and music makes us feel alive. And anytime I sing, I sing all day in the house. I just love singing, and the neighbours don't like it, but I do like singing all the time, It really does make you feel alive.
Since we've been doing the music together, you've found out a lot of other people with dementia can do so much. They really are. Some of them are brilliant pianists. We've probably seen that, on the media. Some of them got lovely singing voices. But then again, you have that stigma of, oh no, you can't do this now, you've got dementia. Sit in the chair, are you okay, you're getting things done for you, and you're starting to lose your independence. And once you start losing your independence, then you lose the faculties to do what you've always loved, because life's becoming easier for you. So that's why Tommy and I are always on the move. There's always something to be done in the day, and I think that's why we're living, if you call it living well with it, then I think that's our key to it.
As I say, we've found musicians that have never played since they were diagnosed, and then they start playing again now, yeah. And you're thinking, this is great, because they've said, we said, why don't you? Oh no, I've got dementia. That's not. You can do it, but people have said, oh, you can't do that. You won't want to play your guitar, or he doesn't play his guitar. They'll always say, well, he used to be a musician, but he doesn't play anymore. Why not? Yeah. Well, he's got dementia. Well, that's not a reason. That's more reason to play. But people don't believe that we can actually still do things. And in fact, some of the best music will actually come out, because one of the greatest singer-songwriters had dementia, and that was Glenn Campbell. And some of his songs are fantastic. And we were only laughing the other day, we seen Glenn Campbell on the television, and he says, I'll introduce so-and-so on bass guitar, and he went over and the fella's on lead guitar. When did he put an extra 2 strings on the bass guitar? It's funny.
That just proves a point though, doesn't it? He just carried on and enjoyed what he was doing. When we got diagnosed, it was like medical people and academics telling you what you can't do, over and over again. You get 6 weekly sessions, was it? 7, yeah. And you get books and there's no information either. You really do have to find out for yourself, and then you're gone then. And that's it.
Music reaches the parts of the brain that the communication can't. So we thought, well, why not go in with music from the start, especially for those newly diagnosed, and get them into it now. We want to get people to be doing what we do so we can spread the word out more and more and more. And the best people that can tell you about what it's like to live with dementia are people living with dementia. The best person who can tell you what it's like to be a carer is a carer. You know, so we want to help not only our peers, we want to help the carers. And by doing that, we're helping their families and our families. And if we can make our carers happy, we know we're going to be happy. What we want to do is get them out, get them involved, and show them that they can still contribute to society, because that's one of the greatest feelings a person needs. You don't realise it before you got dementia, that you need to be contributing to society. You need to feel part of society. You need to feel valued. And that's what we want to do. We want to value every one of our peers, and we want to value the carers, and we want to value their families for the help and support they give them. We've seen things from real life outside, photographs of what carpets look like, and so people understand it. You know, when we talk about perception, our perception, we show pictures of how that actually looks to a person with dementia. So the carer and the person with dementia actually understands it, so they can explain it to people. Because when you say to something, you know, it's our spatial awareness or it's our cognitive skills that go, people don't understand what you're talking about. You know, it's just words to them. So we actually show people what it's like, and we build in humour, so we have a laugh, because, you know, I don't think people will have laughed since they were first diagnosed, you know, because people are frightened to have a laugh with people. You know, they don't realise that you can laugh with us, not at us. And then, of course, we put the music in. So you've got the music with the humour, and that's the way we want to take it forward. Running the post-diagnostic group, of all the things we do, it's the one I love, absolutely love it. To actually see your peers sitting there with no hope, and then you talk to them, and they always say, you know, 9 years ago I was sitting in that chair, and you tell them all the things we've done, and you can see the hope, you can see it. And one of the greatest things one fella said to me, he said at the end, he said, you've given me hope. And yeah.
There are lots of groups with when you go back to the past. I mean, some you want to make new memories, you know, it's okay. The old stuff, great and everything, yeah. But you got to make new memories as well, you know. And that again, it's the focus of getting up in the morning and doing different things. And so that's the message we try to give, you know. Just be yourself, but for God's sake, you know, don't just sit in that chair and disintegrate away. We've always thought, you know, dementia always affects two people, and I think we try to portray that in the music about the carers, you know, as well as the people living with dementia, and just try. It's hope, you know. Everything comes back to hope is what you want. You know, you haven't got hope, you haven't got anything in life.
TREAD stands for Transport, Health, Research, Economy and Dementia. And the reason we started TREAD is because we looked around at all the different groups, and there's just nothing run by people living with dementia. What we wanted TREAD to do was to be at the forefront. We wanted it to not just be a colouring in group or a thing. We actually want to make a difference. We want to change policy. We want to change lives. We want to improve the lives of people living with dementia, the carers, the families, and the economy.
Yeah, so we were up and down the country. We met Pat at one of the meetings there, and she was instigating the same kind of stuff. You know, we gelled, and we decided between us to form a little company, you know, a little CIC company.
Getting Pat on board, it's been like having a chauffeur in a Rolls Royce driving us in the right direction, because we're going, but, you know, we're actually all on the same page. I mean, there are days when you really do feel on the ground, and you don't feel like getting out that chair, but you just think, I've got to, because you know the consequences if you don't. And it's so easy to sit back in your comfy chair and just say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. And I would say, I'll never put off till tomorrow what I can do today, because if you start putting it off, you're never going to do it. So we always set this thing is, we've got to do something. And then if I feel really down, I'll put some music on, and it'll always lift me up.
I think each one of us is unique, you know. We've handled things in different ways. I hallucinate quite a lot. on some days, and I know then things are going to be a little bit different, you know. But I always have this mantra inside me thinking, if I let it happen and it keeps happening, then dementia's got me, you know, it's closing in on me, and so I start fighting against it then. You know, with a lot of swear words, and I tell it where to go, if you can get my gist, and I feel better for saying that as well. And that's like, we like to, you know, portray the stuff that we do in a light-hearted manner and in a positive way to help other people go through these changes. When we used to go to one of the care homes and visit a friend of ours, when we used to go in, and there'd be a guy there, and he had one string on his guitar, and he sung the one song, the Gene Pitney song, I think, 24 Hours from Tulsa. So me and Tommy just sung along with him. Then next minute another one would and it went on for about an hour. You know, the song, they say he'd stop and I'd start, and he'd go right the way through the song as well. But it was interesting, everybody joined in, you know, and even the nurses joined in. It was a bit of fun. And the guy who was playing the one string, you know, dying, 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 he was loving it as well. So it is uplifting, you know, uplifts your heart, the music. Very, very, very important.
Everyone loves a sing song. They just love it. When I got to put something on, a foot tapping thing on it, I would walk 500, and people's feet still goes like that. Well, my favourite karaoke song, Sweet Caroline, Waterloo Sunset by the Kings. I love singing that. I mean, you only have to hear the first few strings of that, and it just makes you want to cry because it's such a beautiful song, you know.
We can name that tune in one.
Yeah, we can actually.
Believe it or not. Yeah. And the first note of the 60s, that's such and such, and that's how your memory works. It's amazing.
It's as if the music's compensated for what we've lost. You know, the arty side of us is compensated for what we've lost.
When I hear Eleanor Rigby on the radio, I know exactly where I was. I was in Wales coming home in the car with my family, and that always sends me back there. Then, you know, I can. It was a lovely summer. England won the World Cup, Everton won the cup, Liverpool won the league, but stuff like that starts infiltrating back into your brain, and it's only triggered by the music. Nothing else, just the music, and that happens many times as well. Even if you just drowse in the morning and you wake up, you know, and you hear something, even the birds singing or a car backfiring, anything. I mean, that is music. It's making a sound, and it's got a pitch, and it's got a wave and everything else. And it suddenly you can start thinking about different things. And mostly, they are happy things, you know. 90% are happy things. So it kind of sets you up, you know, to move forward in your day as well as the pleasure of listening to the music.
We've got to take the fear out of dementia completely, because you'll never know fear until you got dementia. But we've got to make it so, you know, it's not fear. You know, it's just a new world. It's a brave new world. You know, and we want to help people go out and find it.